Okay, I wanted to make a quick video sharing what my and other people's sundial results were in attempting to confirm this recent spring equinox. In summary, unfortunately, I still don't feel 100% about my results or the results of others that I've seen. I feel we're getting really, really close, but I guess I personally would still like to see a few more forms of confirmation, just to rule out a few outstanding uncertainties before I make any claims to be reasonably sure about the timing of these solar events, the times, or the start of the Creator's New Year. But in general, my current understanding, and really my only option at this point, is that it seems March 20th was theoretically the day of the equinox, according to other truth seekers' observations. So in my current understanding, I'll be basing the start of the Creator's New Year on March 21st. So March 21st will be day one. And I plan to count the 30-day months plus the extra seasonal days to get to the set times of the Creator from there, until I get a chance to confirm the times by the next solar event, the summer solstice. So I guess I'll have a picture of my current understanding of the Creator's calendar and his set times, and I plan to make another short video on the topic of the Last Supper versus the Passover. You can see in the picture I've kind of got a question mark there. I'd like feedback, but briefly, I know people take a lot of different things into consideration when trying to prove this debate one way or the other. I guess the thing is, some people think Passover and the Last Supper is the same thing, and some people think they happened on different nights, and it's kind of like how there are many different verses and scriptures that can be interpreted to support the days beginning at evening or ending, beginning or ending either at morning or evening. I'll be making another video on that topic soon, but with regards to the Last Supper and the Passover, I guess I'm kind of getting stuck on the fact that it seems Yeshua's body for communion, or the Last Supper, seems like it should be the living bread. So living seems to mean the raised with yeast bread. Living with the yeast makes it living, raised, as opposed to like the dead flat unleavened bread, kind of like the show bread that was like in the temple service or whatever. And I guess the sanctuary, I guess I'm not sure. At one time I feel like I might have heard there was a difference between shoe and show bread. Maybe one of them was leaven and the other wasn't. I'm not sure. If you have thoughts on that, let me know. Sometimes I just splatter my thoughts out there so people can see a broad picture of what's in my mind, and potentially help me to whittle things down, and taking many and hopefully all factors into consideration. But anyway, in addition, in the New Testament, it seems the Greek word used when Yeshua took the bread was the Greek word for raised bread, not unleavened bread. I believe there's actually a different Greek word for unleavened bread, and that was not used here. Also, there is the question of his blood. I guess I don't want to associate his blood with the wrong symbol or beverage. Potentially, wine or alcohol being an abomination. Potentially. More on that in a moment. But, potentially something that should not be associated with the blood of Christ. And in the accounts of the Last Supper, or what people call communion, I think it says he took the cup, or maybe that was what Paul said about it. But Christ, I don't think it actually ever said wine, like people, the word wine doesn't actually ever appear anywhere in these accounts, I don't think. It says, I think, but Christ said, he said, I will drink not again of this fruit of the vine until I drink it. So fruit of the vine, it is some kind of grape or wine or something. There's something to do with the grapes, I guess. But he says, I will not drink it again with you until I drink it new with you in the kingdom. And to me, I guess it just there's the possibility it seems new means freshly pressed, unfermented grape juice. So you know, I'm not trying to tell people that in general they should or they should not drink wine or alcohol. I just want to make sure I am not potentially misinterpreting my Savior's body and blood with the wrong things, potentially opposite symbols to what was intended, bread versus live bread, or grape juice versus something that gets people drunk. Like, I just want to make sure I'm not mixing it up here. So, I'll be trying to make another short video on that topic soon, but please let me know your current thoughts in the meantime in the comment section below. Another disclaimer about this version of the calendar that's shown in the picture. I'm still not 100% sure about the timing of First Fruits and Pentecost, respectively. I think I have question marks next to this as well. I made a video for my thoughts on that topic, and I'll have a link for it in the description below. But in general, I'm not sure if First Fruits should be in the week of unleavened bread or following. So please check out that video and let me know your thoughts on that. Okay, so anyway, back to confirming this past spring equinox. I attempted to collect my own sundial data, and both Juan Carlos and Jerry Morris and some gentleman in Jerusalem appear to have made attempts as well. I'll be including links for their videos in the description below. I didn't go into too much depth regarding my concerns over the equinox events in my previous spring equinox prep video, but I'm going to now. So if you watch my previous spring equinox prep video, you will see how I attempted to stress the importance of collecting 3 days of back-to-back data. In addition to that, I would have liked to see 3 different individuals confirming these events, one in the south, one in the north, and one near the equator. With these things in mind, I would like to put some thoughts out there regarding the observations made by others, not necessarily saying they're wrong and I'm right, but just to foster iron sharpening iron, you know, and in an attempt to make sure we have all of our bases covered and all the possibilities examined or ruled out. Again, this is not meant to come across as any form of discouragement. I want to encourage these individuals and all other truth seekers to continue learning about and observing our Creator's timepieces, the heavenly luminaries. So this, I mean, at the worst, maybe this is just something I need to see to prove it to myself. But anyway, so I'll start with Juan's video first. It was good to have Juan's participation because he lives in the southern part of this world. Unfortunately, I never heard from anyone recording sundial data who lived near the equator. So with regards to this point, let me try to briefly put some food for thought out there on why I think the observer's location might potentially be an important issue or confirmation that we need to prove out. Okay, so now I'm going to run through some sketches I put together. I know the flat versus ball Earth is a heavily debated topic these days, and I don't really want to get in the middle of that. I haven't made up my mind one way or the other yet. But to be fair to both sides of that discussion, I'm going to include sketches of both scenarios, the ball or the flat Earth, so we can think about what makes sense or what, you know, what doesn't, potentially. The point is not to prove the Earth is a ball or flat, but rather to try to formulate reasonable confidence that there isn't something tricky going on with the sundial results on these equinox events. So, as you look at these sketches, pay close attention to the angles and think about how the shadow patterns are supposed to work out. So again, theoretically, you will see the straight line on the day of the equinox. Then, on the days bookending the equinox, you should see these mirror image arcs. The thing is, I'm not sure if everyone on Earth will see these 3 patterns on the same 3 days or not, depending on where you live, depending on how far you are from the equator. Recall that recall what Enoch states about the 6 portals. This is, You know, Enoch is very specific. He says the first day of the year was the day the sun entered the fourth great portal. My current understanding regarding what Enoch is describing here is that this can only occur directly over the equator. So that was positional information that Enoch gave me. You know, this is gave us. This is where the fourth and third portals seem to be located, or rather, it seems the equator might be located directly in the middle of them. For more on this topic, please watch my EquiLUX versus Equinox video. I'll have a link in the description below. So now, with this in mind, let's think about some scenarios. Again, pay close attention to the angles. Okay, so in this first picture, it's a bird's-eye view looking down on the ball Earth model. I have 3 observation points shown as red dots, one on the equator, one in the north, which, you know, could be Jerry, and one in the south, which could be Juan. They're not exactly to scale. So, on the day of the equinox, the sun would walk pretty much a straight line along the equator, so ball or flat, sun above the atmosphere, sun below the atmosphere. It seems to make sense that in almost any scenario you will see the straight line on the day of the equinox if you're watching from the equator. However, notice how an observer located in the north or the south has to look at an angle to see the approaching sun. I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't seem like they will be looking due east or due west from their vantage point. It doesn't seem the sun will rise and set due east and west, so that's something to consider. One other thing I want to mention is this model, though I'm not sure if all 3 observers will see the similar patterns on the same day. I suppose it is possible that 2 observers in the north and south might see the same patterns if they are located relatively equal distance from the equator. However, there is another variable to consider, what the atmosphere or the firmament dome in the flat Earth model will do to the light rays. What kind of bending or refraction could take place considering the shape of the atmosphere or the firmament dome. You know, this will make sense a little later when I show some side view sketches. So, moving on to the next sketch. This sketch shows a bird's-eye view, except it's similar to the previous view, except this time it's for the flat Earth model. So, we do the same drill for this view. Taking a closer look, again, we see 3 different sets of viewing angles, and again, the observers in the north and south don't appear to be looking due east, and the sun theoretically follows this circular path above the equator line. I guess the guy at the equator would be looking due east and west, in the concept of the east and west, and the concept of the flat Earth being rounded mirror images of each other, I guess. But if he draws a straight line from the point he's standing on towards the rising sun, and then again draws a straight line from his point to the setting sun, theoretically, according to this model, if you put those points and lines back to back, end to end, on the point of observation, I'm thinking you would not have a straight line. It would need to have a slight kink in it to account for the theoretical curved circular path of the sun. But I guess the question is, don't we have a straight line? Do we? That would be a good question, I think. Do we or don't we have a straight line from the equator? Like, isn't that how a compass works? Like, you think about a compass with a needle. The needle is straight, and the needle can flip 180 degrees. That's 180 degrees is a straight line to switch from east to west or vice versa. So, how is that supposed to work? This is getting a little away from the sundial topic, but I suppose it's good food for thought. I guess it could also have something to do with the view of the sun on the east or west horizons being distorted and or shifted by the refraction of the firmament dome. Like I said, I think the solstice event should be much easier to confirm with a fair amount of certainty, because none of this stuff would potentially matter. I'll talk more about that later. But another thing to notice is this flat Earth model is Okay, another thing to notice, notice how the viewing angles appear to be different, even though the observer in the north, called out as the alpha angle in green, might be equal distance from the equator as the viewer in the south, and that viewing angle is called out as the beta angle in green. All this started getting me to wonder. I wonder what direction these straight line patterns are pointing. When Juan, and I guess Juan's the only other one I've seen doing the straight line pattern. Well, I saw some. So when they make these straight lines, I wonder which direction they're pointing when they draw them out. Are they? I wonder, are they pointing exactly due east or west? Just curious about that. Okay, so let's take a look at some elevation views of these models. So this picture shows the ball Earth model on its side. Note that the north, south, east, west directions for reference, so you can tell what you're looking at there. The east runs into the page and west runs out of the page. So it's kind of a section cut or side view on its side. And the sun is overhead at the top of the page. So again, in this view, it's easy to understand why we should expect to see a straight line at the equator on the equinox. Also note how the observations in the north and the south could potentially share the same viewing angle if they are both located equal distance from the equator. Now, on that note, think about what would happen if the sun wasn't quite yet directly over the equator. Further, what if the observer in the north and the observer in the south were not equal distance from the equator? Is it possible that the observer in the north or the south might see a straight line on some day other than the equinox? Also throw in the variable about the potential shape of the atmosphere and or the firmament dome. I'm thinking it might be possible. I'm just not 100% sure. So this is why I would like to see 3 days of data back to back in 3 different locations, the north, the south, and at the equator, in order to rule out this possibility. I've heard of a group in Florida who was doing all kinds of sundial observations using both methods used by Juan and Jerry. And this group was coming up with a straight line on a different day. I'm not sure if that was due to human error or because they were closer to the equator. Okay, so this is the final sketch. This view is similar to the previous sketch, except this time we're looking at the theoretical flat Earth model. So in this sketch, I have shown the firmament dome both above and below the sun. I guess I've seen models out there of both scenarios. So this could have a dramatic impact on the light refraction and bending of the light to a particular observation point. I believe science tells us that light bends towards the denser medium. I think you can experiment with this with a pool of water, or maybe even a cup of water. There is a video out there where a guy explained this type of flat Earth model with the sun over the dome casting crepuscular rays. He talked about the different angles of light refraction theoretically occurring as light penetrated through the theoretical firmament dome. There are potentially a lot of variables, but he does a good model there, and it kind of illustrates things for you to think about. But so it might be worth having a look. So this model, this model might be able to explain the 3 shadow patterns we see the sun create throughout the year. So I'll include a link for that video in the description below. And I think I mentioned in my winter solstice video a little more about these patterns of the sun and the stars that this guy will be talking about in this video. And actually, it's his video that I stumbled upon around the time that I realized the sun was kind of making patterns in the sky or on the ground, kind of similar to the same patterns we see of the stars. Like we see these star wheels, one in the north and one in the south, and then up the middle on the equator kind of looks like a straight line, very similar to what we see with the shadows of the sun. Anyway, again, the point here is not to prove or disprove flat or ball Earth models. The point is just to try to understand what we can reasonably expect to see on the solar equinox events. I'm just trying to make sure we're thinking about all scenarios. For me, there are just too many angles involved and too many possibilities. If someone thinks they can make sense of it, please let me know. My email will be in the description below this video. I'm thinking someone who is good with computers might be able to model up these different scenarios to see if they can get the 3 distinct shadow patterns that we see the sun create during the different seasonal days of the year, these arcs and the straight line. And again, I'm not even sure yet if that all happens on the same day for people in the south, the north, and the equator, or if it's potentially different. So might need to verify that before we model it, or maybe the model will help us determine that. I don't know. I think it'd be safer to do it the other way. Physical observation first, followed by model. Okay, so until more clarity comes on these angles and refractions, until they can be 100% confirmed, I'm still recommending 3 days of back-to-back data from 3 different points on Earth, one in the south, one in the north, and one near the equator. Either this or one person should be adequately able to confirm the solstice events, because I don't think any of these angles come into play for the solstice events. No matter where you are on the Earth, flat or ball, I don't think it should matter. There will be a point when the sun reaches its highest and lowest points, and that can be seen on the same day all around the world, and all one has to do is watch for the shadow to return. And again, I think this needs to be confirmed with 3 days of back-to-back data. And I'm looking forward to this summer solstice event coming up, and I hope others of you will join me in trying to confirm this event as well. No complex angles or sighting in on stars required, no careful crafting skills, tools, or sophisticated measurements required. Just simply find a tall, solid, thick object about 20 to 30 foot tall and watch and record the pattern that the shadow traces over the course of a day. You will see the same pattern every day, but it will be progressing either up or down. On the day of the solstice, a shadow pattern will reach its most extreme, highest or lowest position, depending on if you're looking for the summer or winter solstice events. Then it will start to return back to where it came from. Okay, so back to Juan's observations. The only other thing I'd like to say is I wish he went ahead and collected 3 days of back-to-back data, straddling the Equinox event, so that we could see all 3 patterns created by the sun. You see, he stopped on the day of the theoretical equinox because he felt sure he had seen a straight line. But my question is, I wonder if there's a possibility the line might have gotten even straighter on the next day. Or perhaps there's a period of time where you'll see the pattern that looks like a straight line for more than 1 day, like 2 or 3 days. So on top of the 3 observation points in the north, south, and the equator, I would still like to see someone prove the equinox by providing 3 days of back-to-back data, so that we can actually verify that the shadow flipped and didn't potentially get straighter or stay straight for more than 1 day for whatever reason. I'm not sure I've ever seen anyone do this, so who knows what's possible. I'd like to rule out the possibility, but it needs to be proved in order to do that. Again, this is not to discourage Juan or Jerry or anyone else. I'm just putting thoughts out there for all of us to chew on. Maybe one of us at some point will be able to rule out the various possibilities, and we can all find complete peace of mind regarding these things. Maybe I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill, but it's just unknown to me. So, okay, jumping to Jerry's observations. Unfortunately, I don't believe he collected 3 days of back-to-back data either. In addition, I want to talk about this half-wheel sundial tool that he's using. Juan also used one like this, and the Jerusalem sundial appeared to be a similar, bigger version of it. The thing is, I think this tool might be able to confirm the solar yearly cycle, be it 364 or 365 or whatever, by simply watching the shadow return to the exact same position. However, I'm not sure it necessarily tells us when that cycle begins. and or when the equinox is occurring. In some of Jerry's other sundial videos, I think I recall hearing him mention that different people were trying to use this tool to confirm the creator's times, and they were coming up with different results than he was. This could have been due to human error. This could have been due to them sighting in the tool at a different time of year than Jerry did, because I believe the North Star does actually move a little bit over the course of the year. It kind of does its own little circle up there. So if someone sighted in at a different time of year, they'd be aiming at a slightly different target. Or perhaps some of the other ball versus flat Earth potential unknowns are playing a factor. Who knows? Moving on, regarding Nick's observations in Jerusalem, interesting to note that his time for solar noon was around 11:45 a.m.-ish. And that's different from the time for solar noon that Jerry was coming up with, which was around, I think, 1:30, 1:34-ish p.m.-ish. So I got to wondering if this can be used to figure out where on Earth the starting point of the creator's times begin. I saw someone in Australia mention they were having trouble figuring out when they should be celebrating their Sabbaths and set times, because depending on how you look at it, they could either be one day ahead or one day behind. Like, I guess the Gregorian cycle of time starts somewhere over near Japan. Japan is called the land of the rising sun. You know what I mean? I guess time zones is the term I'm looking for. I guess someone did at some point, I guess someone decided at some point that Japan should start off the time zones, but my question is, where does the creator's clock or time zones begin and end? I need to think about this a little more, but I thought I'd put it out there as food for thought. This solar noon thing might potentially be a factor. Finally, I'll mention my observations from this recent spring equinox event. Unfortunately, I only had sunlight for the day prior to the theoretical equinox. Then a winter storm set in for the next 2 to 3 days. So, I do have 3 days of data, but that's only because I collected data a week prior and then a week following the theoretical date for this event. I'm actually planning to collect my 3rd day of data tomorrow. Kind of weird, the way I'm making this recording a day before. But anyway, so I'll be talking about what I expect to see, and I'll snap a picture tomorrow. And if I'm expecting to see the 2 arcs with pretty much almost a straight line running through the middle. That's what you should be looking at now. If it's something different, I'll have to change this recording. But alright, I figured I'd wrap this up with just video recording explaining what you're looking at here. This is just to give a general idea. It doesn't prove nothing, but it kind of shows you how the sun moves for people who hasn't seen it. So the white flags I took the day before the spring equinox, and then we had a snowstorm for the next few days, so I really didn't get to collect much data. But the orange flags were a week prior, and that one, you can see a pretty good arc there, but that might again be just to the slope, due to the slope of the hill. But something I'm noticing, these blue flags are again like a week later than the equinox, and so in theory, you can see how much the shadow appears to be moving in a week or two. A lot of movement, so you can figure out how much is moving per day. But one thing I wanted to see, I guess, and I wasn't sure if I was going to see it because my terrain isn't level here, is if I could see those arcs. So like I said, it kind of looks like it's arcing the orange, but the blue kind of looks more straight. And I mean, that's just that could be because of the terrain, but again, I think I mentioned earlier in the video, one of my concerns is, like, I guess I've just never seen anyone show, like, how long does the line stay approximately straight? Like, is it truly just one day, or potentially does it stay straight longer? And again, I'm not saying this is, this might just look like it's straight again just because of the terrain. It's kind of a hump here, but still, I need to prove that one of these years, see see the arc bending both ways, straddling the equinox. But so anyway, so another thing I noticed was, and when you do this, make sure you're looking at the bases of the flags where you bent them, because sometimes the flag sticks can bend and they kind of look like the flag's out of line or something. But if you string a line between your two end flags, you'll be able to see, you know, how much curve there theoretically was. Something I'm noticing though, I guess it's near solar noon, so I'm kind of got half a day of data and decided to call it quits. Because again, this isn't really, if I let it go a little longer, I suppose maybe I'll come out here and take one final snapshot of it later to see if when it completes the arc out this way, if it kind of arcs more, maybe, because I've only got half a day of data right now, so maybe that's kind of why it looks straight too. But one thing I'm noticing is, it looks like, and I'll walk you down to the end of the line, but here near solar noon, it kind of looks like the flags are closer to together here near solar noon as opposed to out at the end. Here it looks like it might be 1 foot apart, but out there it looks like it's moved as much as 2 foot, so it's either somehow definitely, I guess, just arcing because it's longer distance out here from flag to flag. Like, so that's definitely about 2 foot difference between these flags. But well, let's see what it looks like from this direction. Maybe I'll see more of an arc or not. Well, yeah, I don't know. We'll keep trying for this. Now, all these variables and these complicated angles and all this stuff that I've been explaining and dealing with, like I keep saying, I don't think it'll matter on the solstice days. And if Enoch is correct, and like we can verify the yearly cycle is 364 or whatever, I mean, you don't necessarily have to get the equinox to figure out the times. If there's symmetry or consistency in the days of the year, you can just kind of confirm the start of the year with any of the solar events. So for the solstice, it doesn't matter if the terrain's level, all these other variables I talk about, the firmament or curve of the earth or all that stuff. It'll just, you'll see this movement occur, and it's a lot of movement, and basically, like, it's been moving this way. Like, these were my first marks, then near the equinox, and then this is a week later. So you can see it moves this way, and on the longest day of the year, it's going to come somewhere here, and then it's going to stop, and it's going to start coming back this way. And then the shortest day of the year, it was way down here, way down this hill, like way down the hill and in the woods is where the shadow was tracing a pattern, but it'll reach its most extreme point down there, and then on the shortest day of the year it'll turn and come back this way. So I just think it's a lot easier, a lot less variables to deal with for the solstice, but I just wanted to, I guess, show you what I was tinkering around with for this equinox. So I guess that's it.
I recommend checking out my other summer solstice and fall equinox videos. I talk about some of the challenges associated with collecting this, the type of data shown in this picture. Probably the biggest factor for the equinox is making sure you have level ground, which I don't really have too much of. I live on the side of a mountain, so things are pretty uneven. But I just wanted to mention again, such things as on level ground and these angles and all this kind of stuff, they're not a factor when trying to confirm a solstice event. I don't think so, and only one person is needed to do that. So that, along with, you know, all these other reasons, is why I recommend others join me in trying to confirm our creators' times via the summer solstice events as additional, simpler witnesses. So I guess that's about it for now. And again, I guess the best thing I can do at this point is to base the starting date of the creator's new year on the date theoretically observed and confirmed by others. So day 1 would be March 21st, and then count off the days for the months and the set times from there. 30-day solar or star months. That's something I want to look into more, because Enoch talks about the 30-day
sun months, but I think solar month, but I think it might also work for the stars too. I'm looking into that. But yeah, count off those days with the extra seasonal days. So please be sure to check out the links in the description below this video. I have links for things mentioned in this video, but also links about for the whole playlist series. So until next time, shalom, and may Abba bless you as you continually seek his truths with a pure heart.